What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the game week preview for game week 22. So I'm going to go through a bit of midweek information that we had in the Carabao Cup last night, talk through defenders, midfielders, options to bring in, then answer some of your questions as well. So let's get into it. So let's start off with some midweek info, and there's a lot to talk about with Man City. So they faced Newcastle last night in the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, and they take a 2-0 lead into the second leg. So it looks quite likely that Man City will get to the final. Obviously, Newcastle could still go through, but Newcastle were at home for the first leg. They lost 2-0. It's very unlikely they're going to go away to Man City and overturn that result. If Man City do get through to the final, they will then blank in game week 31 where they play Crystal Palace. So that fixture won't happen in game week 31. It will get moved elsewhere. Crystal Palace didn't finish in the top 8 in Europe, so therefore that fixture can't be brought forward. So it'll probably go into game week 33. So it's very likely, as things stand, that Man City and Palace won't have a fixture in game week 31, and they will have two fixtures in game week 33. For Man City, it will be Crystal Palace at home and Arsenal at home. So two home games at least, but the Arsenal game, not so great. Anyway, we'll get confirmation of that later on in the season. In terms of the lineups, Nico O'Reilly played number 6. So Rodri was on the bench. Nico Gonzalez was out with a knock. I don't know how long he's going to be out for. I think that's a bad sign for O'Reilly going forward, because Ake started left back again. Aït-Nouri was on the bench and came on. Pep's got options to play that left back spot now. It's not just all Nico O'Reilly. And he's not going to play number 6 when either Rodri or Nico Gonzalez is fit to start the game. So I think he's a big problem in terms of minutes going forward. The problem is, it just becomes very difficult to predict. So if you're a Nico O'Reilly owner, the only thing you want to know, is he going to start Man United away? Is he going to start Wolves at home? I don't know. That has to be my answer. I just do not know. Like, could Aït-Nouri start against Man United away? Possibly. I don't think that Ake would start again, but they only played on Tuesday. They play again on, I think it's Saturday. Tuesday, Saturday turnaround's not that bad. Now, my prediction will be that it's Nico O'Reilly, because he's played so many games. I just think Pep will trust him in that spot, but that could be wrong. So if you want to keep Nico O'Reilly for the next 2 games, I think that's fine. But when you've got a spare transfer to deal with him, I would probably just do it and bring in a defender that you can be much more sure about. Like, anyone sat there with Nico O'Reilly that can get to like Gabriel because they don't own him yet, absolute no-brainer. In the attack, Haaland started again. Pep Guardiola did mention that he would like Marmoush back because Haaland is absolutely exhausted. Honestly, I don't think that comment matters at all, really, for FPL. Everyone owns him anyway. If he does get benched at some point, it really doesn't matter. And also, I don't see that happening. Haaland was literally started in the FA Cup against Exeter. Are you telling me that Pep couldn't have played someone else in that position? I know he didn't get very many minutes in that game, but honestly, they could have beaten Exeter with any of their team, really. No disrespect to Exeter. So don't panic about those comments about Haaland. Semenyo started again, and he scored. And it was kind of a back post. I didn't watch the game, but it was like a back post finish. And Pep Guardiola did mention that they want like Doku and Savinho to be doing the same things, arriving at the back post, getting more goals. So that's a positive for possibly Semenyo getting better minutes moving forward. But it's the same headache as always with Man City players. If you're a Semenyo owner, all you want to know, is he going to start against Man United away? Is he going to start again? I don't know. I think how he started his Man City career, there's definitely positives there. He absolutely could start Man United away as well. And if I was an owner, by the way, and I wasn't sure where to move to, I would be tempted to risk it. Now, you can't be shocked if he gets benched, but there must be some temptation there to do it. I definitely would not buy him right now. But Semenyo creates a knock-on impact on everyone else's minutes as well. Because if he's going to get used a lot on the right and Doku's going to get used on the left, that means Cherki can play centrally, which means in this setup with Foden and Bernardo Silva playing centrally, one of those two could drop out. And it might be that Foden's minutes are impacted now. He's started every single game since game week 4, but we saw in game week 21 he came off in the 72nd minute. He was subbed early last night as well. Maybe that's a sign of things to come. Now, if you're a Foden owner, I probably wouldn't panic right now. We've got a lot of data to tell us that he's starting regularly in that team. And so I wouldn't be looking at it as I wouldn't be looking at Foden, and maybe this is slight subconscious bias because I own Foden, I don't own O'Reilly, but I wouldn't be looking at Foden in as much of a worry about Man United away as I would with O'Reilly or Semenyo. But there is a chance that Foden gets benched soon, and it might not be in the Champions League games. So just keep that in mind. Ultimately, my plan with Foden is just to move him on in game week 24 because the fixtures do get slightly worse then. And like if I thought he was going to continue to start, there might be a case to hold on to him, especially if Cole Palmer's not an option. But I think if there's going to be this uncertainty and he's going to start getting subbed early and stuff like that, I probably will move him on. But Man United away and Wolves at home are probably good enough to keep hold of him because I still think from everything we've seen, we should expect him to start. But Cherky didn't start last night, and he probably comes into the team against Man United. Where will it be? Will it be wide instead of Semenyo? Will it be central instead of Bernardo or Foden? We just don't know. It's just, we've had it nice with Foden. We haven't had to worry about these headaches, but I think there's been a knock-on effect with Semenyo. It doesn't just affect Doku and Savinho, etc. It also affects other players. Like, you got to remember, Cherky and Foden, they're not the same type of winger, but they can play out wide and obviously come centrally. Now they've got another attacker to throw into the mix. So to try and summarise this, O'Reilly's a problem moving forward. Foden's potentially a problem, but I think right now I wouldn't be in as much of a panic about it. If you've got Semenyo, I'd be tempted to hold if you're not sure where to go, but I still think long term he's got to be moved on. I don't think his minutes will be secure. And if you've got Cherky, he's probably a problem longer term, but because he didn't start this game, I'd be quite tempted to keep him for Man United. And Haaland, who cares? We all own him anyway. So there's not as much to say about Newcastle. Obviously, that loss last night means it's a lot less likely that they will blank in game week 31. Therefore, they won't have a double because of it. They could still double later on in the season if they reach the FA Cup semi-finals, or if their opponent in game week 34 does. So in game week 34, Newcastle play Arsenal away. That's the weekend the FA Cup semi-finals will be on. So if Newcastle or Arsenal get to the FA Cup semi-final, that fixture will be a blank and it'll get put elsewhere. But that's something to worry about down the line. In terms of the lineup, we know that Livramento is injured. Apparently he's going to be out for about 8 weeks. So that does mean that Lewis Hall's minutes are probably quite good right now because Livramento can play left back, he's injured. Dan Burn can play left back, he's also injured. Now I do think that Lewis Hall is probably a player that Newcastle would like to manage, so it'll be interesting to see how he's used in January because they've got a lot of fixtures. But right now you have to assume he's probably going to start Wolves away because there is a 5-day turnaround as well. But Lewis Hall played the full match last night, but they haven't really got anyone else to play there. So I think for now, you just keep hold of him. Chow, as expected, just came back in. Although he got subbed early against Leeds, it's not a problem. He's going to continue to play moving forward. Lewis Miley was right back again. When Trippier came on, Lewis Miley went into midfield. I think we can probably assume at this point that Visser is first choice number 9 for Newcastle, but there is no chance I would buy him, because you've got Voltemada there and there will be rotation. And honestly, after the next 2 fixtures, Wolves away and Villa at home, it does get a little bit trickier for Newcastle. Liverpool away, Brentford at home, Spurs away, City away. It's not great. So I wouldn't buy any Newcastle players right now anyway. Jacob Murphy went off with an injury. I'm not sure how bad that one is. It still meant that it didn't stop Gordon getting subbed before the 70th minute. So I think if I was a Gordon owner, I would definitely keep, because if Murphy's got himself injured, there's one less player to play in those wide positions. So Barnes could even play off the right at times. Like maybe Elanga starts, then Barnes comes on, or vice versa. So I think Gordon's minutes will probably be okay, but he does keep getting subbed early. So if I had him, I would probably keep him for Wolves away, Villa at home, then reassess. But I'm not sure if I would go out of my way to buy him right now, unless you're specifically looking for a short-term punt. Otherwise, not too much other stuff to say about Newcastle unless there's something I missed. Obviously, Pope started in goal again. Yeah, I mean, don't buy Newcastle players. If you've got Chow, Lewis Hall, Bruno Guimaraes or Gordon, probably keep hold of them for now. Let's very briefly talk about captaincy for game week 22. And I say briefly because for most people, it's just going to be Haaland again. On the graphic, I've gone for Haaland, Ekitike and Cole Palmer. And my intention when I made this graphic was to basically say Cole Palmer is there if you want to take a massive punt on captaincy, because Brentford at home is not a bad fixture. His ownership is relatively low, and of those people that own him, most of them won't captain him. So he's a massive differential opportunity. But since making this graphic, there's reports that he's not seen in training ahead of their Carabao Cup game, and there's even some rumours going around that he might not be in the squad at all. Now, that could just be pure minutes management so that he's ready for the Premier League game. I just don't think I would take the risk. Like, the early sub is almost certainly going to happen if he starts. Now, I think he will start, but should you risk that with captaincy? Probably not. So if you want to take a massive punt on captaincy, Cole Palmer is there. For most people, I would definitely advise against it. I think the safe thing is just to go Haaland. He'll start. He'll probably play the full match. It's Man United away, who defensively have not been great this year. Although, it's worth saying, Man United's defensive numbers have gotten a bit better recently. They're starting to get closer to top 5 defence in terms of expected goals conceded. Now, they have had a lot of good fixtures recently. They've played Burnley twice, Leeds, Wolves, etc. So that will help. No, sorry, Wolves twice and then Burnley recently. So there is some signs of improvement, but ultimately I don't see Man United as a great defence. You know Haaland's going to start. You know he's got a lot of goal threat. He's on penalties, blah, 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 all that boring stuff. He is the best captaincy. If you want to go against him, it's Liverpool, I think, against Burnley at home. There isn't really a huge amount of other great options. Like Arsenal are away to Leeds, that's game week 24. Arsenal are away to Forest. Yeah, away to Forest. But, I mean, who are you going to captain? Like, Saka's not terrible, but I think most people are kind of fed up of owning Saka, let alone thinking about captaining him. Spurs at home to West Ham, no. Chelsea at home to Brentford. Who else do you captain? Like Enzo Fernandez? Like, are we really at the point where he's an option ahead of Haaland? Not really. So, for me, I mean, Newcastle against Wolves, maybe. If you were confident Gordon was going to play the full games, like a midfield penalty taker. But like Bruno Guimaraes and Declan Rice, they're good picks, but they're not, in my opinion, captaincy material. So, I think it's Haaland or Liverpool. I've gone for Ekitike because he was back in the squad for their FA Cup game, got 30 minutes off the bench. I'm pretty sure he will start, but he could get subbed early. It doesn't matter that Liverpool don't have another number 9. He can still get subbed early. They can play Wirtz number 9, Gakpo number 9. He can mix things up. So if I owned Ekitike, I would definitely be keeping him, and I would consider captaincy, but I know for sure that if I had that decision, I'd have the armband on Haaland. I just wouldn't be... I've said this so many times this season because of how well he's done. You need to be pretty sure about backing against Haaland, and I just wouldn't be sure enough about Ekitike or Wirtz. I just wouldn't. So I probably personally wouldn't go there. It's worth saying, with Haaland, by the way, he hasn't been scoring many goals recently. And, you know, it wasn't that long ago... Well, maybe at the start of the season when he was absolutely smashing it, there was probably some conversations starting up about the fact we should change the captaincy rule so you can't captain players in X amount of game weeks. But you look at Haaland, 6-2-2-2. And then, okay, got 16 and 13 against West Ham and Palace, but it was 2 before that. Great result against Fulham, but then it was blank, blank, blank before that. Obviously missed the penalty against Liverpool. He's actually not done that well. But on paper, like Man United away is just such a good fixture. He is the best pick. And he will be the best pick next week against Wolves at home. We just got to accept that it's a bit boring right now. Maybe that changes if we get a double game week in 26 or Palmer can show some consistency with the good fixtures coming up. But right now, it is very difficult to back against Haaland. As I've just mentioned him for captaincy there, let's just quickly talk about Cole Palmer because I think there's a bigger talking point with him right now outside of captaincy because a lot of people want to bring him in because of how good Chelsea's fixtures are, either in game week 22 or in game week 24. Just as I was about to put this video together and then upload it, I saw that Chelsea released an article from Liam Rosenior's latest press conference where he talked about Cole Palmer. And the reason I think this is interesting is because when Maresca left, there were reports coming out that he kind of clashed a little bit with the medical staff. That the medical staff wanted him to manage certain players' minutes, and I'm sure Cole Palmer was one of them, and he felt like some players could play more. And the way that the answers around Palmer from Rosenior are in this article, it's almost like they're briefing us to tell us that he's on board with what the medical staff say, and that if Palmer needs to be managed, he will be managed. So I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'm just going to go through it. So he starts by talking about how happy he is to work with Cole Palmer. He's a special talent, etc., and that he's world class. He goes on, where is it? Oh, yeah. So he says, I had a really good in-depth conversation. Oh, sorry. He's talking about the workload that Chelsea face over January because they've got so many fixtures. He said, I had a really good in-depth conversation with Cole Palmer on Monday. I've had a good in-depth conversation with the medical team, and we're at a stage of the season where we've got another 8 games in 4 weeks. So it'd be crazy for me to risk any player in this phase of the season. Now, again, he may just get rested for the Carabao Cup and then start the Premier League, then get rested in the Champions League, then start Premier League. I'm not trying to scaremonger that Cole Palmer's not going to start any Premier League games, because of course he is. I just think it's really interesting that Maresca goes and there's a clash with them, and now he's like, I've spoken with the medical, and sorry, Rossini's come in, I've spoken with the medical team, and I'm like, it's almost like he's trying to tell us he's on board with it. He's making sure the Chelsea board know he is on board with what the medical staff say. Again, maybe I'm just subconsciously saying that because it would be easier for me to not buy Palmer, but I think it's a little bit weird. I have a real faith in this group. They showed that against Charlton. We made 8 changes and we had a good performance. I'll make changes for Wednesday and I'll make more changes on Saturday. To risk a player's health in January is a crazy thing to do if you have the ambition that you want to be strong at the end of the season. And then it goes on to say that the new manager didn't give anything away about where Palmer might slot in. False 9, right, 10, etc. He's just a world-class player that can play anywhere. My job is not just about him. It's the functionality of the team where other players fit around him. But I want to give him the license to go and do what he loves, which is score and create goals. And yeah, then he's just talking about how good he is. I don't think there's anything else on his fitness. So look, again, I've kind of said this in the run-up to Game Week 22. If you've got a easy route to Cole Palmer that's like one transfer, Cunha to Palmer, I'd be tempted to take the punt. For anyone that's got a more convoluted route to get in, where it's multiple transfers, I would probably just put it off until Game Week 24. The other thing to say is because of Chelsea's fixture run, the more likely time he's going to get rotated in the Premier League is probably later on. Like, I think he just doesn't start in the Carabao Cup tonight, and then he starts in the Premier League at the weekend. But his minutes are going to be managed. Like, Liam Rossini is making it clear here that he has to manage him over January. It's just whether we're confident that always comes in non-Premier League games. I just think at the start of the season, if you show me this fixture list, I'd say Cole Palmer's essential. I just don't think that. Like, he's got this problem that's not going away. He hasn't had surgery. They think it can just heal. He's a punt, basically, because he's not cheap. He's 10.4 million. I would put it off until Game Week 24 if you can, and then make a decision about whether to buy him. And look, it's not all about captaincy, but at that kind of price, it would be nice to have the confidence to do that. Like, I've got Saka who's a similar price, and right now I won't captain him, but maybe I do in Game Week 25 against Sunderland at home. Maybe I do in the double game week in 26. Cole Palmer, I'm just not so sure right now. I don't know. I just saw that article when I was about to edit the video and just thought it's like they really want to make it clear he's going to get managed and get over it, basically. So I think it's fine if you want to bring him in, but I think Enzo Fernandez for 6.4 just feels like such good value, and we're going to talk about him a little bit later. So a few people asked me to talk about cheap defenders that they could consider bringing in this week. So I'm looking at 5 million or below. I've got Richards at Palace, Cash at Aston Villa, Mukiele at Sunderland, although honestly, now he's 4.4 million. If I was buying a Sunderland defender, I'd probably look at Alderete or even Reinildo, who are both cheaper. Like, Reinildo should come back into the team now, and he's only 3.8 million. So he's definitely someone to look at if you need someone ultra cheap to give you funds for other moves. Then you've got Joachim Andersen at Fulham, Senesi at Bournemouth. I know Bournemouth defence has been pretty bad recently, but he's still absolutely smashing the DEFCONs, and they've got some good longer-term fixtures as well. And then Van Heck at Brighton. I think, as always with cheap defenders, you really need to consider for your own individual teams how often you need to play them. Like, if you need someone to come in this week and start the next 3-4 games, then who you bring in is different than, okay, I need to sell an expensive defender to someone cheaper. I don't necessarily need them right now, but long term, I want them to have good fixtures. So, for example, I would probably lean towards the defensive contribution defenders primarily. So if you look at Richards, who's been great this year, 10.59 on average per start. And by the way, he's only 4.4 million now. So quite a nice price. Sunderland away is okay, but then it's Chelsea at home in 23. And actually, 2 of the next 3 games are away. So Sunderland in 22 and Forest in 24. But longer term, Burnley at home in 26, Wolves at home in 27. And if I just bring him up here, which I should have already done, it's Man United away in 28, which is okay. It's Leeds at home in 30, which is also okay. But they might blank in game week 31. Now, I don't think right now in game week 22, you need to start worrying about not bringing players in because they blank in game week 31. But obviously, it will be a consideration soon. But they've got some nice longer-term fixtures. He's a really good price, and he's good for defensive contributions. Cash I don't mind because he's got some attacking threat, but it does feel like the season of DEFCON defenders. So I don't mind Cash. In fact, I actually quite like Cash as a pick, but he's 4.8. So it depends how much you want to spend. Because in the next 6 game weeks, it's Everton at home, Brentford at home, Brighton at home, and Leeds at home. The 2 away games are Newcastle in 23 and Bournemouth in 25. So actually, I quite like Cash if you've got 4.8 to spend. Despite me saying it's the season of the DEFCON defender. Sunderland, I think I would only go to if you need an enabler or you really need someone to play right now. Because the next 3 are Palace at home, West Ham away, Burnley at home. But after that, you got Arsenal away and Liverpool at home in 25 and 26, which isn't so good. But I do really like the Reinildo pick, and there is a chance I bring him in soon. I haven't quite decided on my Game Week 24 moves yet, but there is a chance that I will need to downgrade a defender. And Reinildo with Burnley at home that week is definitely on the radar. And by the way, after the Arsenal-Liverpool games, Fulham at home in 27, it'd be okay to play him there. Then it's Bournemouth away, Leeds away, Brighton at home. Game weeks 28 to 30. They're not amazing fixtures, but for 3.8 million, if you get stuck and have to play him to save a transfer, it's kind of okay. So he's an option. Or if you want a DEFCON defender that's not Mukiele at 4.4, Alderete at 4.1, also worth considering. Joachim Andersen I own, and I actually own Senesi as well. I think both of them are kind of okay longer term, but not necessarily great in the really short term. So Senesi, for example, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, next 2, not so great. But as an owner, if I had to play him in 20, like any of the fixtures afterwards, I'm kind of okay to play him in. So let me bring up the longer fixture list here. So, and I'll make this a little bit bigger as well. Like any of the fixtures from 24 onwards, there is a lot of away games, but I don't mind playing him in most of them. So Wolves away, Villa at home, Everton away, West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Brentford at home, Burnley away. That's the fixtures 24 to 30. And they will definitely play in 31 against Man United at home as well. I don't mind playing Senesi in any of those games. I know Bournemouth defence has not been great. Like it really hasn't. I think Iriola's got stuff to sort there. But defensive numbers can change quite quickly when the fixture run looks like that. Like he gets to play Wolves, West Ham, Sunderland, Brentford at home, Burnley away as well, all throughout that run. I think Senesi's still quite a good longer term pick. But again, I don't know. Let's say you're sick of Van Dijk and you're downgrading a defender to put funds elsewhere. If you need them to play this week and next week, you don't buy Senesi. But if you just need them longer term, maybe you can consider it. Because he's at 12.5 defensive contributions per start. So I quite like him. And it's a similar conversation with Joachim Andersen, which I know because, again, I own the guy. Leeds away is okay this week. Brighton at home is okay in 23. And then you've got Everton at home in 25. Sunderland away in 27. And then 28 to 31 is Spurs at home, West Ham at home, Forest away, Burnley at home. So again, he's another pretty good longer term pick for 4.6 million. And he's at 10.45 defensive contributions per start. Van Heck I just wouldn't buy right now, I don't think, for 4.5. The fixtures are okay. And to be fair, he does have a bit of goal threat. We've seen that so far. But the DEFCONs are not quite there. So I don't think I would go there. Basically, if you want someone fairly cheap, it's Reinildo or Richards for me. I think 4.4 or 3.8 million. I really don't mind cash if you've got a bit more money to spend. But I do think long term, Joachim Andersen and Senesi are pretty good. I've had them in my team since, I think, Wildcard 4. And I'm probably not going to let go of them right now. I just think they rotate quite nicely overall. There's enough good fixtures where you can see the play them. So, God, this is where I've got to say, who would I buy? Look, if I need them this week, I'd buy a Sunderland defender, I think, because they're nice and cheap. And they got some okay fixtures afterwards. Long term, I do think that Richards, Andersen and Senesi are probably the best options. I guess I'd lean towards Richards because I trust the Crystal Palace defence a little bit more. But I do think Bournemouth will look a little bit better in 8 game weeks' time when they've had some more of those good fixtures. And Senesi's so good for defensive contributions. I don't hate that. And he's got a bit of attacking threat as well. So I want to talk about midfield options as well, because there's been a lot of chat this week about Cunha replacements, for example. Do you go up to Palmer? Do you go to Bruno Fernandes? But not everyone has money in the bank. And obviously, when I talk about replacements like Enzo Fernandez, I get a lot of comments about, why aren't you mentioning Morgan Rogers? Like, you just seem to dismiss him as a pick, which is not the case. He's just not really top of the list for me. So let's talk about midfield options that are kind of Verts, price, and under. If you're not already tripled up on Arsenal and you've got a spot for Declan Rice, he probably is one of the better picks at this kind of price range. He's only 7.3 million. He's got pretty good attacking numbers. Like, they're not bad. They're not kind of Bruno Fernandes level or something like that, but they're decent. And he's very good for defensive contributions as well. He's averaged 10.53 per start, and you need to hit 12 as a midfielder. So Declan Rice is a bit of an all-rounder. I will say, right, I still think that double defence and one attacker is the best for Arsenal. Now, a lot of people will say it should be Timber, Gabriel and Declan Rice. The only slight consideration to think about, and we'll see what the result is tonight, if Arsenal get to the Carabao Cup final and they blank in 31 and that fixture gets brought forward to game week 26, so they double in 26, who would be your favourite Arsenal player to captain? Let's say I could make it so they're all going to play the full game in both matches. So they're all so Saka, Rice, Gabriel, I think they'd be the three main contenders right now. They're all going to play 180 minutes over the double. Who would you want to captain? If your genuine answer is Declan Rice, then fair enough. But I suspect if I could guarantee you Saka was going to play good minutes in both games, that most people would actually prefer to captain him, despite how the season has gone so far. Just think about it. And by the way, so the Wolves game is the one in 31, so that would be the one potentially brought forward to 26. Their other fixture in 26 is Brentford away, so it'd be Brentford away and Wolves away as the double game week. In theory, it might not happen. It's worth saying that. And they've also got an FA Cup match, so it would actually be Brentford away, FA Cup, then Wolves away. So in theory, Saka starts Brentford, gets benched for the FA Cup, that's where Madueke plays, and then Saka also starts Wolves. That's why I'm mentioning Declan Rice, like the context around Arsenal picks in general. So in isolation, Declan Rice is great against these other midfield picks. But if I was picking 3 Arsenal and I knew Saka was going to start both games in a potential double, I would want Gabriel, Timber and Saka. I wouldn't want Declan Rice. So just consider that. I know how good Rice has been. You don't need to tell me. And I think he's a really good pick. Just consider it. That's all I'm saying. If you don't want to go for Rice or you're already tripled up, I really like Enzo Fernandez. We'll see how Chelsea set up tonight and how many minutes Palmer gets, etc. But Palmer's minutes are going to be managed. There are going to be times when Enzo is playing and he's first choice penalty taker. And there's part of me that thinks of Enzo, we don't quite know how Rossini is going to set up and where Enzo is going to play, what his minutes will be like. But I keep coming back to the fact he's going to play a lot. And the fixtures are just so good. What are we even thinking about here? He's 6.4 million. They got Brentford at home, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home in the next 6. How does this guy not get points? He almost feels like a no-brainer, and yet I still thinking, maybe I put it off until game week 24. I really like Enzo as a pick. He also has great underlying numbers. It's worth saying, though, he's not a great finisher. If you go and look at his goals versus XG, he often underperforms. But overall, the numbers are so good, he's got to get returns over this 6-game period, surely. Morgan Rogers, I don't have a thing against him, by the way. I think he's a great player. I just don't think he's value at 7.6 million. The thing is, he often plays either on the left or number 10 for Villa. So you think, how is he not going to get points? And he always does, right? This is the thing. I say I'm not going to go for him, and he just continues to get goals and assists. I really struggle with his underlying data this year. 0.13 expected goals per 90, 0.11 expected assists. Like, that's worse than Declan Rice, and he's more expensive, and he doesn't have DEFCON potential. I just think Rodgers is... I always say this, I know the comments, I just think he's a bit expensive. I don't think he's value at 7.6. Like, if I can bring in Enzo Fernandez and spend 1.2 million elsewhere, I think that's better use of my money than buying Rodgers. So Rodgers will probably continue to get points. I don't think he's going to blank. I'm not that stupid. I just don't think he's going to get points at a rate where he's valuable. So nothing, like, he plays 90 minutes every game. That's great. The fixtures are really good. I've got nothing against it if you want to buy him. I would not sit here and argue against it at all. I just don't think I'm going to buy him. But that could change. You never know. Verts I would only go for if you want a 2-week punt. Burnley at home, Bournemouth away. I think that's fine for 8.2 million. After that, Newcastle at home, City at home, Sunderland away, Forest away. It's not bad. But Ekitike number 9, Gakpo's back now. We've seen Verts play on the left. What happens if Gakpo's play in that spot? Does Verts definitely go into midfield? Does he get a rest at some point? I'm not convinced he's worth it longer term. Bruno Guimaraes is He's like Declan Rice, but in my opinion, slightly worse, but a similar price. I wouldn't. Oh god, Bruno Guimaraes is like so frustrating because he just keeps getting points and you just look like an idiot. But one of the goals came from a penalty with no Gordon or Voltemada on the pitch. One of the goals came from a corner. He's massively overperformed so far this season. Now, when we talk about players that have overperformed, and by the way, I've owned some of them, Dewsbury Hall, for example, right? The idea is that it will stop at some point, and it will stop. The problem you always have, and I have, is you're never quite sure when that will happen. It could be that Bruno Guimaraes is in great form, so it will just never stop. But at some point, the rate of returns will slow down. It's whether you're willing to make a bet that it happens now or much later on. Personally, I wouldn't buy him. I just don't think the fixtures are good enough after game week 23. I'd probably rather go for Rodgers than Bruno Guimaraes. He's not a bad pick. Please don't get me wrong. But I just wouldn't. Like, if you've got him, you're holding, obviously. But I wouldn't bring him in. And then Neto, the fixtures are great. I don't know if he's fully nailed under the new manager, would be my concern. Like, they've got other wingers there. He's 7.1 million. The underlying numbers are kind of okay. The DEFCONs are not there. I would just buy Enzo if you're going Chelsea, and I wouldn't double up on those two players. So, shorter summary. Really like Rice. Just think about captaincy in game week 26. Like, by the way, you could go Saka, Rice, and Gabriel. Not a problem. Enzo, really like. I think he's good value. Wirtz, short-term punt, that's it. Rodgers, if you've got money to spend. Absolutely, I think he's a good pick. But I think it would be Rice, Enzo, probably Rodgers next. That's if you want to go shorter term. So let's get into some of your questions. I can't find any reason not to buy Frimpong. What do you think of him as an FPL pick? Right now, he looks quite exciting. Playing right wing, only 5.7 million, still picks up clean sheet points even though he's playing in that more attacking role. Burnley at home is great. Bournemouth away, not bad either. And if he continues to start, and he's as attacking as we've seen recently, you're not really going to mind playing him against Newcastle at home, City at home, Sunderland away, Forest away, etc., which are the games after Bournemouth. The two question marks I would have longer term, does he keep starting right wing and does he keep playing? Like, is he going to get enough minutes in that Liverpool team? I'm not so sure. Like, African Cup of Nations will obviously eventually finish, or Egypt will go out and Salah will just return anyway. And because of everything we saw before African Cup of Nations started, it might be that Salah doesn't automatically go back into that team, but I do think it's way more likely that he does than he doesn't. And obviously he's going to play right wing. So that pushes Frimpong back to right back. Now, Bradley's picked up an injury, and I think he's going to be out for the season. So presumably, Frimpong will play a lot, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. Like, Gomez can play right back when he's fit, and I don't see him playing every single game. I just don't think he's got the fitness to do that. But Slot might use him in that position. And we've also seen Szoboszlai play there as well. Like, it wouldn't be a complete shock that in a few game weeks' time when Salah's back, it's Szoboszlai right back and Salah right wing, and Frimpong's on the bench. That would be my worry. It's worth saying I am always quite cautious with minutes. There'll be other people looking at it and think, just shut up, right? It's Frimpong playing as a right winger. Just take the punt. That's absolutely fine. If you've got the transfers to do that, you're willing to take the punt. That's how you should play it. For me, I just wouldn't be... Personally, I just don't think it's as simple as he plays right wing. When he's not playing right wing, it's right back. I just don't know if he's that nailed, basically. Like, it could be Frimpong right back, Salah right wing, Szoboszlai into midfield. That could happen. It also just might not be that. So I think it looks great this week because it's Burnley at home. And again, if you're swimming in transfers, I'd be tempted to take that punt. But I guess my final thought would be, I think he's more likely to become a problem than not soon. And so for that reason, I probably wouldn't go there. And also, clean sheets are still the bread and butter. And everyone hates Van Dijk right now because he doesn't get enough clean sheets. Like, Frimpong would have to get a lot of attacking returns to be worth the money. And he could do if he continues playing right wing. How confident are you in that? That should be the question you ask yourself. So who are the best 2-week punts before you wildcard in game week 24? Now, the 4 teams I think most people will be looking at are Spurs, who have got West Ham at home in 22, then Burnley away in 23. Liverpool, who've got Burnley at home, Bournemouth away. Man City have got Man United away, Wolves at home. And then Newcastle have got Wolves away, Villa at home. Man City, I personally would just completely disregard. Let's say you own no attackers from that team. Doku, Semenyo, Foden, Cherki. who's going to start both of those games? I'm just really not sure. Based on everything we've seen, my assumption would be Foden, but even that I am questioning right now. So personally, I would probably avoid Man City, mostly because I just don't know which player to tell you to bring in. I guess Cherky, if we're talking punts, because he didn't start the last game. But he could just start Man United, then not Wolves, or even vice versa. Or maybe he starts neither. I just don't know. So Man City, personally, I'd probably ignore for punts. Liverpool, I think it's Frimpong, Wirtz, or Gakpo. And I don't mind any of them. I think all three have got a good chance of starting both games. You could also throw Ekitike into the mix as well if you're looking for a forward rather than a midfield or defender. Which of those four can I guarantee start both games? That's difficult to know because obviously Liverpool will have Champions League as well. So I'm just going to bring up Liverpool's overall fixtures right now. I think my instinct is drawn to Wirtz because he didn't start the last game in the FA Cup. So he definitely comes in for Burnley. I just don't see any way around that. Then it's Marseille away in Champions League. Then it's Bournemouth away in game week 23. So look, you've got Liverpool want to try and finish top 8. You've got potential rotation because of that. But I think Wirtz will probably start both Burnley and Bournemouth as long as he's fit. So he's probably where I would go to in terms of midfielders, or Ekitike or Frimpong if you want a forward or defender. For Newcastle, it would be Anthony Gordon for me. I know how well Bruno Guimaraes has done. I know his minutes are better. But if we're talking about a punt, Gordon's ownership presumably is a bit lower and he's on penalties. And I know he hasn't scored a huge amount of goals for a long time, but Wolves away, Villa at home are okay. So if I'm going Newcastle, it's Gordon. Spurs, I mean, I don't know. My initial instinct is I'd rather save the transfer than take a punt on a Spurs player. I guess in terms of minutes, Xavi, presumably after his red card, will now play. He got 90 minutes against Bournemouth, picked up an assist as well. Presumably, he starts West Ham at home and Burnley away. I think Tell has started the last couple of games as well. He started Bournemouth and Sunderland. I don't have much confidence in predicting which players will always start for Spurs. I guess the fact that Kudus is out helps a little bit. I guess you look at Tell or Xavi. I think Muani or Richarlison just too much, just wouldn't go there. And look, West Ham at home, Burnley away is great. Like Xavi or Tell could do really well in those games. When I say it out loud, though, I just think I'd probably rather just save the transfer. What I've not learned, but come to the kind of conclusion of talking through this answer, I like. It depends who you're selling. Like, I know I've used Cunha a lot, but I think a lot of people own him. They're looking to sell. I would take a 2-week punt by selling Cunha if I was wildcarding in 24. But if you've got someone, I don't know. Let's say you're slightly worried about Foden's minutes. There's no way I would sell him for a 2-week punt. I'd much rather save the transfer and just wildcard in 24 with a couple of transfers saved up. So don't force yourself to take it. But just to, again, short summary, Wirtz probably from Liverpool, although Frimpong, Ekitike are definitely options in different positions. Gordon from Newcastle. I wouldn't go Visser or Voltemada. And then Xavi or Tell if you want to go Spurs. So what are your thoughts on Chelsea defenders? Generally, I think they are worth looking at bringing in, given how good the next 6 game weeks are for Chelsea as a whole. The only 2 players I think you can consider are Chalobah and Cucurella. I think Gusto, I just wouldn't necessarily trust in terms of his fitness longer term. Definitely wouldn't trust Reece James. We're not sure who the centre-back partner will be with, for Chalobah most weeks. It's also worth saying, new manager has just come in. He might prefer 2 other centre-backs, but I think we've got to assume that Chalobah will continue starting, and that's about it. Like, Hato's not going to play enough, etc. So it's only Chalobah or Cucurella. There is a lot of, I would say, hype and hope that the way Rossini will set up will mean that Cucurella is really attacking. That could be the case, but obviously I do not have enough games to go on right now to guarantee that. They are playing Arsenal in the Carabao Cup tonight, so we might get an insight there. If Cucurella looks great, then yes, he probably is going to be more attacking than Chalobah. But whether or not he's worth paying the extra 0.5, I don't know. I think I would basically say, if you can get Cucurella without it stopping you making all the other moves that you want to make over the next couple of weeks, which might be to get Bruno Fernandes, it might be to get Palmer, etc., then I probably would risk Cucurella as the more attacking option with a great set of fixtures. But I wouldn't force it. If your route to a Chelsea defender is just much easier if you save 0.5 and go Chalobah, I'd be more than happy with that. We've seen in the past he's got a bit of goal threat. He's better for defensive contributions as well. He's not going to pick them up as regularly as like a Senesi or an Anderson or a Richards, but he is 8.25 per start. So he will get the odd defensive contribution here or there, and his goal threat's not that bad. So I think the defender that I'd earmarked a while ago, if I was going to pick up a Chelsea one, was probably Chalobah. But it will be interesting to see Chelsea tonight in the Carabao Cup and how Cucurella plays. And also, if you can put off any of your Chelsea decisions until game week 24, you've got a lot more matches to see, like Champions League, Brentford at home, Palace away in the Premier League as well, before you have to make a decision. So right now I'm going to stick with Chalobah. And that is, I'd say, a big percentage because he's cheaper. I think that 0.5 could be useful, but there is every chance Cucurella is great over the next few weeks. If you've enjoyed that video, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll catch you tomorrow for team selection.